Bill Gates is strongly rejecting a set of allegations that have resurfaced following the public release of a large volume of documents connected to the late financier Jeffrey Epstein. The claims, which appeared in draft materials attributed to Epstein, have drawn renewed attention in recent days and prompted a clear response from Gates's representatives. U.S. Department of Justice records released on Friday, January 30th, included millions of files tied to Epstein's criminal investigations. Among those materials were draft emails that contained unverified assertions involving Gates. A spokesperson for Gates has described those claims as entirely false and without any factual basis. According to reporting by People, the Department of Justice released more than 3 million documents related to Epstein's investigations. The release included a range of materials, among them draft emails that Epstein allegedly wrote to himself. These drafts contained a series of unsubstantiated allegations about several individuals, including Bill Gates, the Microsoft co-founder and philanthropist, who is identified in the documents as being 70 years old. The claims have no supporting evidence presented within the materials, and there is no indication that they were ever substantiated by investigators. One of the draft emails cited by People was dated July 18, 2013, and listed Bill as its subject. The content of that email included graphic and explicit allegations about Gates. Among the assertions was a claim that Gates had contracted a sexually transmitted infection and sought medical treatment after alleged encounters described in the document. The email further claimed that Gates attempted to conceal the situation from his then-wife, Melinda French Gates. The article notes that these statements were unverified and appeared only in Epstein's draft writings. In response to renewed attention surrounding these documents, a spokesperson for Gates issued a statement firmly denying the allegations. The statement described the claims as absolutely absurd and completely false. The spokesperson further stated that the draft emails reflected what was characterized as Epstein's frustration over not having an ongoing relationship with Gates. According to the statement, the language in the drafts demonstrated what the spokesperson described as the lengths Epstein would allegedly go to in order to entrap and defame others. The article emphasizes that the emails in question were drafts and does not indicate that they were ever sent to anyone. The drafts appeared to be written as though they were intended for Boris Nikolic, who was a former advisor to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. However, the materials do not show that the emails were delivered, nor is there any evidence presented that Nikolic was aware of their existence at the time. Nikolic resigned from his role at the foundation in 2014, according to the article. The resurfacing of these allegations comes amid broader public scrutiny of materials related to Epstein following the large-scale document release. The article underscores that the contents of the drafts are unsubstantiated and that their presence in the released files does not equate to verified claims or findings. The Gates spokesperson's response focused on disputing the accuracy of the allegations and on characterizing the drafts as defamatory in nature. Bill Gates has previously spoken publicly about his interactions with Jeffrey Epstein. In a January 2025 interview with the Wall Street Journal, Gates acknowledged that he had met Epstein and described that decision as a huge mistake. During that interview, Gates stated that his association with Epstein did not result in any advancement of philanthropic objectives. The article does not provide additional detail beyond Gates's acknowledgement of the meetings and his description of regret regarding that decision. The renewed attention surrounding Gates is taking place against a backdrop of growing concern over how Epstein-related documents are being interpreted in public discussions, particularly online. The article notes that the release of a large volume of files has led to widespread examination, but also to instances where information has been misinterpreted or taken out of context. This concern has been echoed by others who have found themselves linked to Epstein-related claims circulating on social media platforms. Earlier in the same week, another individual publicly addressed false claims tied to Epstein-related materials. John Ramsey, the father of JonBenet Ramsey, spoke out against viral online allegations suggesting that his late daughter appeared in files connected to Epstein. Ramsey rejected those claims outright, stating that there was absolutely no truth to it. He made those comments in an interview with TMZ on Tuesday, January 27th. Ramsey warned that redacted images and speculative interpretations, particularly when amplified by social media and artificial intelligence tools, can quickly escalate into misinformation. The article presents his comments as an example of the broader challenges posed by the rapid spread of unverified claims following the release of large and complex document sets. The concerns raised by Ramsey parallel the response from Gates' spokesperson, both emphasizing the potential harm caused by unfounded allegations. The article as a whole focuses on the distinction between verified findings and unproven claims that appear within draft materials. It highlights the importance of context when examining documents released as part of criminal investigations, especially when those documents include notes, drafts, or writings that were not formally communicated or corroborated. The Department of Justice release, as described in the article, has brought renewed attention to Epstein's associations while also raising questions about how such materials are interpreted by the public. As this story continues to draw attention, the initial focus remains on the facts presented within the article. Gates's representatives have categorically denied the allegations contained in the draft emails. The article does not indicate any supporting evidence for the claims, nor does it suggest that investigators confirmed them. Instead, it documents the response from Gates's spokesperson, the context of the document release, and the broader concerns about misinformation linked to Epstein-related files. The release of more than 3 million files by the U.S. Department of Justice on Friday, January 30th, marked one of the largest disclosures connected to the criminal investigations of Jeffrey Epstein. According to People, the materials encompass a wide range of records accumulated during years of investigative activity. Within that extensive collection were draft emails allegedly authored by Epstein himself. These drafts, which were never confirmed to have been sent, contained a variety of unverified claims and personal assertions that have since drawn renewed public attention. Among the draft emails highlighted in the reporting was one dated July 18, 2013. The subject line of that draft reportedly read, "Bill." The content included graphic and explicit language, presenting allegations about Bill Gates that were not supported by evidence within the documents. The draft claimed that Gates had contracted a sexually transmitted infection and had sought antibiotics following alleged encounters described in the email. It also asserted that Gates attempted to conceal this information from his then-wife, Melinda French Gates. The article makes clear that these statements appeared solely within Epstein's draft writings and were not presented as established facts by investigators. The reporting emphasizes that the email was one of several drafts Epstein allegedly wrote to himself. These drafts were not formal correspondence and were not accompanied by any indication that they were reviewed, sent, or received by their apparent intended recipient. The tone and content of the drafts reflect Epstein's own words, without verification or corroboration from external sources. The presence of these drafts in the released files does not suggest that the allegations they contain were investigated or validated by authorities. The draft emails appeared to be written as though they were intended for Boris Nikolic, who previously served as an advisor to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. However, the article notes that there is no evidence indicating that Nikolic ever received the emails or had any knowledge of their existence. Nikolic resigned from his advisory role at the foundation in 2014, 1 year after the date of the draft email referenced in the reporting. The article does not link Nikolic to the content of the allegations beyond the appearance of his name as an apparent intended recipient. In response to the resurfacing of these claims, a spokesperson for Gates issued a clear and forceful statement. The spokesperson categorically denied the allegations, describing them as absolutely absurd and completely false. The statement further characterized the draft emails as reflective of Epstein's alleged frustration over not maintaining an ongoing relationship with Gates. According to the spokesperson, the drafts illustrated what was described as the extent to which Epstein would allegedly go in an effort to entrap and defame individuals. The article does not report any legal action tied specifically to these draft emails, nor does it indicate that the claims resulted in investigative findings against Gates. Instead, it focuses on the public response following the document release and the clarification provided by Gates's representatives. The reporting underscores that the allegations remain unsubstantiated and are contained only within Epstein's own draft materials. Bill Gates has previously addressed his past interactions with Epstein in a public interview. In January 2025, speaking with the Wall Street Journal, Gates acknowledged that he had met Epstein. During that interview, Gates described those meetings as a huge mistake. He stated that the association did not achieve any philanthropic objectives. The article references this interview to provide context regarding Gates's prior acknowledgement of contact with Epstein without expanding beyond Gates' own words. The resurfacing of Epstein-related materials has sparked broader discussion about how such documents are interpreted once they enter the public domain. The article highlights concern that drafts, redacted materials, and incomplete records can be misunderstood when removed from their investigative context. This concern has been echoed by others who have found themselves connected to claims circulating online in the wake of the document release. The article points to a recent example involving John Ramsey, the father of JonBenet Ramsey, who publicly addressed false claims connected to Epstein-related files. Earlier in the week, Ramsey rejected viral assertions suggesting that his late daughter appeared in Epstein-linked documents. Speaking to TMZ on Tuesday, January 27th, Ramsey stated that there was absolutely no truth to it. His comments were presented as a response to speculation that spread rapidly online. Ramsey warned that redacted images and speculative interpretations, particularly when amplified by social media platforms and artificial intelligence tools, can escalate quickly into misinformation. The article uses his comments to illustrate the broader impact of how Epstein-related materials are being consumed and shared. The rapid spread of unverified claims, according to the article, has raised concerns about reputational harm to individuals mentioned in or loosely connected to the released files. Within this broader context, the article maintains a clear distinction between documented facts and unverified assertions. It reiterates that the claims involving Gates originate solely from Epstein's draft emails and have been explicitly denied by Gates's spokesperson. The reporting does not present any additional evidence to support the allegations, nor does it suggest that they were substantiated by law enforcement. As attention continues to focus on the implications of the document release, the article remains centered on the factual record as it is currently known. It documents what was released, what was claimed within those materials, and how those claims have been addressed by the individuals involved. The emphasis remains on accuracy, clarification, and the risks associated with misinterpretation. The continued circulation of Epstein-related materials following the Department of Justice release has underscored growing concerns about how such documents are interpreted once they become public. The article highlights that the sheer volume of files, combined with the presence of drafts, redactions, and incomplete records, has created conditions in which speculation can easily outpace verified information. This environment has contributed to renewed scrutiny of individuals named or referenced in the materials, even when the claims involved are unsubstantiated. In the case of Bill Gates, the article makes clear that the allegations resurfaced solely because of the inclusion of Epstein's draft emails in the released files. These drafts, which Epstein allegedly wrote to himself, were not presented as evidence, findings, or conclusions by investigators. Instead, they were part of a larger archive of materials collected during criminal investigations. The reporting does not indicate that the drafts were treated as credible or actionable by authorities, nor does it suggest that they were supported by independent documentation. The Gates spokesperson's response, as quoted in the article, directly addressed the nature of the draft emails. By describing the claims as absolutely absurd and completely false, the spokesperson sought to clearly separate Epstein's writings from factual reality. The statement further emphasized that the drafts reflected Epstein's alleged frustration and his purported efforts to defame others. The article does not report any contradiction to this response or present alternative interpretations from official sources. The article also notes that the draft emails appeared to be framed as though they were intended for Boris Nikolic, a former advisor to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. However, it reiterates that there is no indication the emails were ever sent. There is also no evidence provided that Nikolic was aware of the drafts or their contents. His resignation from the foundation in 2014 is mentioned as a matter of record, without any suggestion that it was connected to the emails or the allegations they contained. By emphasizing the draft status of the emails, the article draws attention to an important distinction between private writings and verified communications. Drafts, by their nature, may reflect thoughts, intentions, or narratives that were never formalized or shared. The article does not attribute any factual weight to the allegations beyond their presence in Epstein's own writings, and it does not report any investigative conclusions arising from them. The broader concern raised in the article centers on how such materials are consumed by the public once released. With millions of files becoming accessible at once, the task of contextualizing individual documents becomes more complex. The article suggests that this complexity can lead to misinterpretation, particularly when excerpts are circulated online without explanation or verification. This concern is not limited to Gates, but extends to others whose names have surfaced in Epstein-related discussions. The example of John Ramsey is presented as a parallel case illustrating the potential consequences of misinformation. Earlier in the week, Ramsey publicly denied claims circulating online that suggested his late daughter, JonBenet Ramsey, appeared in Epstein-related files. Speaking to TMZ on Tuesday, January 27th, Ramsey stated unequivocally that there was absolutely no truth to it. The article includes his comments to demonstrate how quickly false narratives can emerge from partial or misunderstood information. Ramsey's warning focused on the role of redacted images, speculation, and the amplification of unverified claims through social media and artificial intelligence tools. According to the article, he cautioned that these factors can cause misinformation to spread rapidly, creating confusion and harm. His remarks align with the broader theme of the article, which stresses the importance of careful interpretation when reviewing sensitive investigative materials. The article does not suggest that the misinformation concerns are limited to any single platform or group. Instead, it frames the issue as a broader challenge arising from the intersection of large-scale document releases and modern information sharing practices. The rapid dissemination of claims, regardless of their accuracy, can lead to widespread attention before clarifications or denials are fully absorbed by the public. Within this context, the article maintains a consistent focus on factual reporting. It outlines what was released by the Department of Justice, identifies the nature of the documents involved, and reports the responses from those named in the materials. It does not introduce speculation or commentary beyond what was directly stated by the individuals involved. The emphasis remains on distinguishing between documented facts and unsupported assertions. As the article progresses, it reinforces the position that the allegations involving Gates remain unsubstantiated and have been explicitly denied. The inclusion of these claims in Epstein's draft emails does not, according to the article, establish their validity. Instead, the reporting frames them as part of a larger pattern of controversial and misleading narratives emerging from Epstein-related materials. With these concerns in mind, the article continues toward its conclusion by summarizing the key responses and reiterating the risks associated with misinterpretation. In the final part of this report, we will bring together the central points outlined in the article and conclude with a factual summary based strictly on the information presented. As this report draws to a close, the central focus remains on the facts as presented in the released materials and the responses from those directly involved. The resurfacing of allegations concerning Bill Gates followed the U.S. Department of Justice's release of more than 3 million files connected to the criminal investigations of Jeffrey Epstein on Friday, January 30th. Among those files were draft emails allegedly written by Epstein, which contained unverified and graphic claims about Gates. The article makes clear that these claims appeared solely within Epstein's own draft writings and were not supported by evidence presented in the documents. A spokesperson for Gates responded directly to the renewed attention, categorically rejecting the allegations. The statement described the claims as absolutely absurd and completely false, emphasizing that they had no basis in fact. The spokesperson further stated that the draft emails reflected Epstein's frustration over not maintaining an ongoing relationship with Gates and characterized the drafts as an attempt to entrap and defame. The article does not report any competing statements from official sources or any indication that the claims were substantiated by investigators. The reporting also highlights the nature of the draft emails themselves. While the drafts appeared to be written as though they were intended for Boris Nikolic, a former advisor to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, there is no evidence that the emails were ever sent. There is also no indication that Nikolic was aware of the drafts or their contents. Nikolic's resignation from the foundation in 2014 is noted as a factual detail, without any connection drawn between his departure and the draft materials. Bill Gates' prior acknowledgement of meeting Epstein is included in the article to provide context. In a January 2025 interview with the Wall Street Journal, Gates described those meetings as a huge mistake and stated that the association failed to advance any philanthropic goals. The article does not expand on that statement beyond Gates's own words and does not link the meetings to the allegations contained in Epstein's drafts. Beyond Gates, the article places these developments within a broader discussion about how Epstein-related materials are being interpreted following the large-scale document release. It underscores growing concern that draft documents, redacted files, and incomplete records can be misread when shared widely without context. The reporting suggests that this environment increases the risk of misinformation, particularly when claims spread rapidly through online platforms. The example of John Ramsey is presented as a clear illustration of these concerns. Earlier in the same week, Ramsey publicly denied viral claims suggesting that his late daughter, JonBenet Ramsey, appeared in Epstein-related files. Speaking to TMZ on Tuesday, January 27th, Ramsey stated that there was absolutely no truth to it. His comments are included to highlight how quickly false narratives can gain traction when speculative interpretations circulate online. Ramsey warned that redacted images, speculation, and the use of artificial intelligence tools can amplify misinformation. According to the article, he cautioned that such factors can cause claims to spiral beyond control, creating confusion and potential harm. These remarks align with the broader theme of the article, which emphasizes caution and accuracy when interpreting sensitive investigative materials. Throughout the report, the article maintains a clear distinction between verified information and unsupported assertions. It does not present the allegations contained in Epstein's draft emails as established facts. Instead, it documents their existence within the released files, the responses from those named, and the wider concerns about how such materials are consumed by the public. The emphasis remains on factual clarification rather than speculation. The Department of Justice release itself is presented as a significant disclosure of historical investigative records, rather than as a set of conclusions. The article does not suggest that the inclusion of draft emails implies validation of their contents. Rather, it frames the release as an opportunity for public scrutiny that also carries the risk of misinterpretation when context is lost. In summarizing the developments, the article reiterates that the allegations involving Gates are unsubstantiated and have been explicitly denied. The claims originated from Epstein's own draft writings and were not supported by evidence within the released materials. The reporting also reinforces the broader warning that large-scale document releases, particularly those involving high-profile figures, can fuel misinformation if not carefully examined. As this story concludes, the facts remain as stated in the article. Bill Gates, through his spokesperson, has firmly denied the allegations. The draft emails at the center of the renewed attention were never shown to have been sent or verified, and concerns continue to be raised about the interpretation of Epstein-related materials in the public sphere. This report has presented those details as they appear in the record, without inference or speculation, based strictly on the information provided.